This morning, in what U.S. officials call a highly provocative move, the Pentagon says 2 Venezuela military planes flew near a U.S. Navy ship.
I'm speaking to the imperialists of the North. We're getting ready, and we will fight if you dare set foot in Venezuela.
The Pentagon last night claiming the Venezuelan flights were designed to interfere with our counter-narco-terror operations.
15,000 Venezuelan troops, naval ships, and drones are now patrolling the Caribbean. But here's the question. How far can a force with aging equipment and militia support really go against a U.S. Navy armed with Aegis destroyers, stealth bombers, and over 4,500 personnel nearby? Venezuelan leaders say any U.S. move is a military terrorist attack and promise to fight as a republic in arms. Are we watching the early moves of a regional war or a desperate show of strength? Stay with us as we break down the balance of power in this tense standoff.
President Donald Trump ordered 10 F-35 jets to Puerto Rico, on top of 8 U.S. warships and 4,500 sailors and Marines already in the region. Minister Vladimir Padrino said the force expands earlier deployments to 2 states that border Colombia. The timing is important. The U.S. is expanding its presence in the Caribbean.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. 15,000 troops, patrol ships, and surveillance drones look like a serious shift in posture. But the number getting the most attention is 4.5 million. That is the size of Venezuela's militia, at least on paper. It sounds enormous, but you have to ask, what does that actually mean in a fight? The country's defense minister announced this as a move from routine defensive drills into what he called combat readiness. That wording alone signals a change. It suggests no longer training for potential threats, but preparing as though a clash is expected. At first glance, the scale looks impressive, yet Venezuela's professional force sits between 100,000 and 150,000 active troops. Their core weapons, tanks, and aircraft come from purchases made more than a decade ago, many parts difficult to replace or upgrade. This is why the militia is emphasized. It isn't made of career soldiers, but volunteers. They aren't equipped like an army, but they provide the image of a society ready to wage irregular resistance. Seen from the outside, it is closer to a political statement than a battlefield advantage. In an official video released by the government, militia members line up alongside naval patrol boats and drone crews. The footage is cut to show coordination. Boats pushing off the pier, small drones lifting into the air, formations of armed civilians marching in step. At the highest level, the message is clear. President Maduro frames any U.S. action not as a conventional war, but as what he brands a military terrorist attack.
Tensions in the Caribbean have escalated after the United States deployed warships near the coast of Venezuela last month, which Washington describes as part of its strategy to fight the international drug cartels. The U.S. government has not signaled any planned land invasion by the thousands of service members being deployed. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro calls the U.S. buildup as a pretext for invasion.
With that framing, defense becomes survival, and survival requires every able hand. State broadcasters hammer that idea, speaking of the nation as a republic in arms, a people bound in resistance. The same words that warn Washington also reinforce control inside Venezuela. On paper, the force looks massive, but much of it is symbolic. Across the water, however, the Americans have sent warships that are anything but symbolic. 6 U.S. guided missile destroyers are sitting off the Caribbean, and each one carries the Aegis radar system. That radar allows them to track and strike targets hundreds of miles away in any direction. Compare that to Venezuela's patrol boats, which are meant for river and coastal security, not engaging a fleet designed to fight in open ocean warfare. The ships on station, USS Lake Erie, USS Gravely, USS Jason Dunham, USS Minneapolis-St. Paul, USS Samson, and USS Stout, represent some of the most lethal surface combatants in the world. Together, they create a protective shield that makes it nearly impossible for smaller craft or low-altitude aircraft to get close without being detected and targeted. But the naval presence is only one piece. Behind it sits a far larger show of U.S. strength that includes stealth bombers capable of crossing continents unseen.
Venezuela is sending 25,000 troops to its borders and coastlines in what officials call a need to combat drug trafficking.
This is now, and this is Ecuador, a country increasingly consumed by cocaine, desperately trying to claw its way out.
Appears to be a show of force days after the U.S. military attacked this boat in the southern Caribbean, allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela, killing 11 people.
Nuclear submarines carrying ballistic missiles and marine expeditionary groups prepared to land within days. Central among these is the amphibious Ready Group, carrying 2,200 Marines, vehicles, helicopters, and landing craft. For a country like Venezuela, this represents not just a threat of strikes from sea and air, but also the possibility of rapid insertion forces hitting key points almost immediately. The air wing backing these units includes F-16 fighters, 10A-10 Warthogs meant for close air support, long-range B-2 bombers, and P-8 Poseidon patrol planes that sweep vast areas for hidden submarines or surface targets. All of this is controlled under a unified command that integrates radar, satellites, and communications into one battle network. That makes 4,500 U.S. personnel far more capable than millions of irregular fighters armed with rifles. The rules of engagement add another layer. Any armed vessel or aircraft that approaches too closely risks an instant response. Venezuela fields drones and militia, but the asymmetry is clear.
Washington argues the buildup is aimed at narcotics networks it links to Nicolas Maduro's government. Justice Department indicted Maduro and top officials on drug charges, offering up to $50 million for his capture and $15 million for Padrinos. A couple of days later, Venezuelan fighter jets flew close to a U.S. destroyer in what was described as a provocative maneuver. Tensions between Caracas and D.C. are high. Earlier this month, a U.S. missile strike sank a boat believed to be from Venezuela, killing 11 people the White House says were traffickers.
U.S. forces combine unmatched technology with combat experience, leaving little doubt about who controls escalation. Which raises the key question: if a clash is unwinnable for Venezuela, what purpose does this standoff serve? Venezuela calls itself a republic in arms, leaning on the numbers of its militia to project the image of a nation ready for combat. Yet when placed against American destroyers able to launch precision strikes and stealth bombers, crossing continents undetected, the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. This standoff is not a classic battlefield confrontation. It is a signal war, fought in deployments, speeches, and images broadcast to the world. The danger is that signals can be misread. One wrong radar contact, one mistaken drone flight, and words might give way to devastation. So what happens when deterrence collides with desperation?